I'd like to ask you a question right now that hopefully you'll answer yes to, and that is, do you calculate and track your net worth each and every month? And if the answer to that is yes, well, has this exercise helped you keep track of your savings and investment goals? Keeping track of my own net worth is something that I've consistently done each first of the month over the past couple of years, and I truly believe that this has greatly contributed to where I'm at right now. As a society, we're always keeping tabs on data points from our everyday lives, including things such as calories, steps, workouts, quality of sleep, and so much more. So it only makes sense that you'd also keep track of your net worth and your finances on a quite consistent basis in order to achieve your financial goals. Now, in really simple terms, your net worth ultimately comes down to the value between your total assets minus your total debts or liabilities. So if someone had, say, a $20 bill to their name and they also had $10 worth of debt that they owe to someone, well, their net worth would simply be $10. On the other hand, say a student that had $5,000 in their bank account, but then they also had $20,000 worth of student loan debt, well, their total net worth would actually be negative $15,000. But of course, things can get significantly more complicated than this as you progress through life, hopefully increase your income, acquire more assets, and keep liabilities to a minimum. So with this in mind, keeping track of your net worth on a month-to-month basis, while this could seem like overkill, well, actually what it's doing is that it's keeping you more accountable and aware of how your actions are impacting your financial health. So in today's video, we'll actually be speaking about how I managed to 10x my net worth over around the past year and a half, where the largest gains were made, and what you should be focusing on in order to make the largest impact on your own financial life. And by the way, shameless plug here, I keep track of my finances and net worth in a Google sheet that I made and that you can find it down in the description if you're interested. Now, you could make this yourself. It did take me though a couple of days to put together, and over the past year or so, I've been refining it. So yeah, that's something that if you want to just skip time to make it, check it out down below. All right, so before we actually dive into how I managed to increase my net worth over the past year and a half, well, let's first briefly cover the concept of personal assets versus personal liabilities, which in reality are quite similar to the assets and liabilities that you'll find for companies on their balance sheet. So you might actually be familiar with these concepts. Starting with personal assets, this comes down to anything that has value in an open market. So the most notable ones include things such as property, cars, cash, stocks, cryptos, bonds, ETFs, notes, gold, jewelry, patents, and pretty much any other valuable that you might have. Now, some people will choose to calculate their net worth by also including higher ticket items that they might have, things such as expensive golf clubs, expensive TVs, furniture, things like that. But this is not something that I take into account when calculating my own net worth. On the other hand, personal liabilities are things that take money out of your pocket each and every month and that you're liable for. So the main ones are usually mortgage debt, as well as credit card debt, student loan debt. This could also include alimony and anything else, once again, that takes money out of your pocket each and every month. And by the way, I'm not talking about expenses here, right? Things such as your phone bill, groceries, everyone has expenses. I'm strictly speaking about your assets versus your liabilities that will appear on your personal balance sheet. So you're probably thinking at this point, well, calculating your net worth seems to be pretty simple. And yeah, it is. You take your assets, subtract your liabilities, and boom, you have your net worth. What's much harder though is working towards increasing the value of your net worth over time and having your assets and investments work for you to increase in value, so appreciation, but then also create income for you. And this is going to help contribute growing your net worth without having to always be working yourself and trading your time for money in order to have an impact on the increases of your personal net worth, right? So this ultimately comes down to the concept of having your money work for you and working towards putting money of your active income aside towards investments and other assets so that these can work for you on your behalf around the clock. And for most people, including myself, what this will look like throughout the course of your career is working towards increasing your active income sources and then taking that active income and transforming it into cash producing assets, which will then unlock the idea of passive income. And that right there is the single reason why wealthy people invest their earned income towards cash producing assets, which of course has an impact on their net worth. And then if you take it one step further, even reinvesting the passive income produced from those assets, all of which will have a profound impact on further and quicker compounding of their net worth. I'm not entirely sure what the title of this video will be just yet, but what this 10x net worth came down to for me was a combination of a couple couple things kind of all happening at once. So number one, increase of income, but then also being invested in the real estate market and the stock market all at relatively opportune times. However, this wasn't opportune when I started out, right? It was just consistency of my actions over the past couple of years. With this in mind, the elements that did contribute to an increase in my net worth, some of them were fully in my control, while others were entirely out of my control. The first and most important element is what we just spoke about, being increasing your active income. There is simply no other way around this reality. You can watch as many videos as you want or read a billion books about investing and increasing your net worth, but if you don't have more cash flow at your disposal each month, well, not much is going to help move the needle. I've said it before and I'll say it again that I encourage anyone who's interested in entrepreneurship to give it a try. We live in an age now where you can start a business from your phone, learn all about it on the internet, and create multiple income streams without having to invest massive amounts of capital up front. Otherwise, if you're in the corporate world and you're happy with that, well, that's great. Work towards increasing your productive output, rise up the ranks, and then increase your active income. Whatever your strategy ends up being though, make generating more income one of the top priorities, not necessarily in life, but in terms of if you do want to increase your net worth. And then also I would encourage you to try and create at least 2 to 3 income sources minimum. When I was still working my 9 to 5, which did cover my basic living expenses at the time, well, after work, it was business, YouTube, and investing, where it took years before I was able to achieve an income from those other sources that was matching my 9 to 5 income. But over time, with enough consistency, it's pretty much inevitable that this will materialize if you keep your eye on the end goal. Step number 2, once you've started increasing your income, is to resist the temptation to go out and buy a brand new TV and instead take that money and start increasing your savings rate so that you can invest further into cash producing assets and or assets where you have a goal of capital gains as the strategy. Everyone's always trying to find a quick way to get rich and make it big on one stock or say one altcoin. But if I take a look at my past 3 years where I made the largest increases in my net worth came down really to increases in my income from work and then subsequently my YouTube income. And then from there, around only 10 to 15 good investment decisions along the way. That's it. Property appreciation definitely made one of the larger impacts over this period of time. So right there, that's around 5 to 6 good decisions in the past 3 years. And again, none of that would have been possible though had I not focused on step number 1 first, being increasing your income. So I know I've said it like probably 30 times in today's video, but that really is something that I cannot stress enough. And for anyone thinking that this happened overnight or that YouTube seems to be really easy, some people end up just blowing up. But for me, it resulted in 80-hour weeks for over 2 years in order to actually make this a reality. And YouTube, while extremely rewarding, is also one of the most challenging things, both physically and mentally. There's a chapter from this book that I love called The Psychology of Money that goes over this concept of a handful of good decisions making the largest impact, where the author speaks about how for most investors, the majority of all returns are created from the tail ends of a bell curve, meaning that even if most of your stock picks don't budge or even go down in value, the handful of stocks that perform very well will compensate for the entire portfolio. And in my experience, this has proven to be quite true, where over the past couple of years, I've picked many stocks that have not performed up to what I had expected for them. However, all of this was basically canceled out by the massive appreciation that I experienced from a handful of companies. The Shopifys, the Lightspeeds, the GoEasy, Afria, Well Health, these all greatly contributed to my net worth increasing substantially. So you don't always need to be right on every single decision you make. As a finance creator, I see viewer interest across the board on YouTube change over time. And I really don't understand how the idea of investing in personal finance can be trendy and or go in phases. Of course, you don't need to be as interested as I am, but make sure to never stop increasing and continuously learning new skills that can increase your income. And then also make sure to consistently invest. That is the best thing that you can do. Step number 3 here, and this isn't really a step in reality because over the past year and a half, this has greatly contributed to the increases in my net worth. However, I have absolutely no control over this. And this has been the monumental increase in both the stock market as well as the real estate markets. Now, some could say that I've just been lucky, but in reality, this is absolutely not not the case, because if you look at my investments over the past several years, I've been invested since around 2016. And so I rode through many periods where my portfolio was negative overall, actually. But I stuck to my strategy of dollar cost averaging and have not strayed from this longer term outlook. And when the markets crashed in early 2020, I put pretty much 100% of my cash at the time and net worth into the stock market as well as the real estate market, mostly through ETFs and maybe a dozen stocks, with a few of them having knocked it out of the park, but that's all that has really been necessary. ETFs that track passive index funds are literally the simplest investments ever, and if you don't get excited by compound annual average returns of say around 15% per year with the NASDAQ 100, then there's a problem. From an investment standpoint though, the number one contributor that did help propel my net worth over this past 2-year period has been the appreciation of the housing market across Canada. Quite literally, multiple markets in Canada have almost doubled in value since I first got in. With that said, this was also in parallel to having brought strategic renovations to these properties, which ended up resulting in forced appreciation. In fact, I made a video going over this entire concept of forced appreciation brought to a property, along with equity paydown and everything else you need to know about investing in property, that I would highly recommend you check out if you haven't already and you're interested in property investing. My point being with all of this though is that trying to time the market has never been part of my larger and longer term investment strategy. Rather, I just further educate on investment topics that interest me and then stay consistent with my actions towards them. So even though the overall market has appreciated quite a bit over the past year or so, well, I'm still looking to invest. It's just that finding better deals and better opportunities takes more due diligence, time, and patience. Every successful investor over a 10, 20, 30-year period will inevitably experience both hot and cold markets. So for this reason, it's very important to tailor an investor mindset and stay the course no matter the market climate. I'd like to leave you on this one last point, and that would be to focus on only 1 or 2 main activities. Right? What are the 2 main things in your life right now that will contribute the most to increasing your active income over the next 12 months? With social media influencing us on a daily, even I get caught up sometimes in the idea of new ventures, different investment opportunities, whatever it might be, but I always try to ground myself and just stay focused on what the main things were that brought me to the point where I am at right now, and continue just going all in and working towards those things that play to my skills. The active work that I conduct on a daily basis may look completely different for you, but ultimately what matters is that it is something that works to your skill set, and make sure to not spread yourself out too thin. Go all in on 1 or 2 ventures for an extended period of time and really try to maximize the potential in that opportunity. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to drop a like. It really helps my channel out. And if you want to learn more about investing in the stock market, investing in real estate, and personal finance in general, then check out all the other videos that are already posted on my channel, and make sure to subscribe. Also, don't forget to take a look at the resources I use and recommend down in the video's description, where you can get some free money for opening various different brokerage accounts and gain access to some exclusive perks. On that note, thanks a lot for watching today's video, and I will see you in the next one.